Thank you very much, Dr. Apeksha. Honorable Professor Neelu Jain Gupta, Honorable Chairperson of this session, Honorable Shri Ramesh Kushwaha, Additional District Judge, Meerut, and also Secretary of Dalsa District Legal Service Authority, Honorable Professor K.K. Sharma, the Secretary of Shaikshik Sahityak Parishad of CCS University, Honorable Professor Vivek Tyagi, Coordinator of this prestigious Institute of Legal Studies, respected Dr. and Professor Ashish Kaushik, the convener of this program, respected Dr. Dharmendra Kumar, all the faculty members, the senior faculty members as well as the new faculty members, especially Dr. Sudeshna, Dr. Meenakshi, Dr. Dhanpal Singh, Dr. Vikas Kumar, and other faculty members. I might have not named them. This is a matter of great privilege for me to be part of this special program, the seminar on the very auspicious Constitution Day, and naturally the topic is very fruitful, very enlightening, and earlier till 2014, 26th November was celebrated as Law Day, and from 2015 onward it is being celebrated as Constitution Day. This may also be a matter of explanation why it was called Law Day for more than 65 years, and now it is called Constitution Day. Basically, for the people, every law has sanctity, is auspicious, but now it is the fundamental law of the country. But now the government of the 2014 thought that because Constitution was adopted on 26th November, therefore it must be taken as Constitution Day. The other point is that the theme of the seminar is Bharatiya Samvidhan, a vision for justice, liberty, and equality. And Professor Vivek Kumar has thrown very nicely light on the theme of the seminar. But from my angle, because on this auspicious day of the framing, finally adoption of the Constitution, the government directive is to have oath of the preamble of the Constitution. From that angle, I would like to throw light on the whole preamble of the Constitution. The theme of this seminar is part of the preamble. The justice, liberty, and equality is one of the provision of the preamble of the Constitution. And for a wider perspective, we must know about the preamble of the Constitution as a whole. Now, you must have with you the text of the preamble. I requested the convener, Professor Ashish Kaushik, that at least the student must come. Okay. Then, actually, we can discuss preamble from the angle of the background and nature of preamble. Secondly, the philosophy of preamble. And thirdly, the significance or importance of preamble. The background of preamble includes the background of Constituent Assembly. Actually, a demand, not official demand, was raised by Mahatma Gandhi as early as in 1922 that we must have some body for framing the Constitution of India. It is considered, politically, it is considered as the first demand. Actually, right from the 18th century, it was one of the main demand of the Indians that in all the bodies, including the Governor's Council, before the Legislative Council in 1909, there were Governor and Council, and after 1857, the Governor became Governor General or Viceroy. So there was Governor General and Council. So it was the demand of Indian leaders, including the people who were, though belonging to the royal families, but they were interested in the independence of India. You might have, Lois Strand might have studied the case of Nand Kumar. He was also member of the council. So, the early charter of 1833 prescribed about the inclusion of a law member in the governor and council. Later on, it was amended by the Charter of 1853, and the first law member was Lord Macaulay. We generally talk about Lord Macaulay. He was instrumental in the formation or codification of criminal law in India and bringing out the Indian Penal Code in 1860. So later on, if we see it technically, then the first demand for a constituent assembly for India was raised by M.N. Roy in 1934. M.N. Roy was a very learned person who started, or he was the initiator of communism in India and also propounder of which we call radical humanism. He started a journal, a small journal, way back in 1937 by the name Independent India, which later on became, the name was changed to Radical Humanist, and it is still being published. It is the 89th year of publication of this magazine. It is journalistic magazine or journal. So later on, the constitutional journey of Constituent Assembly began with the Cabinet Commission, which on 16th of May 1946 declared that there would be a Constituent Assembly of all the Indian members to frame the Constitution for India. So the Constituent Assembly was constituted. Most of the people do not know that how the members of Constituent Assembly were elected or nominated. At that time there were legislature in the states, which was known as Legislative Council. In British ruled areas, there was division of the whole territory into the British India and the princely state, which you generally talk about, that there were more than 560 princely states which were integrated into India or acceded to India with the efforts of the first Home Minister of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. So the representative, about two-thirds representative were elected by the Legislative Council and one-third were nominated by the princely states, because they were also to be included in the independent India. Initially, there were 389 members in the Constituent Assembly, which started its work. First meeting or session was on 9th December 1946, but as the declaration of Pakistan on 3rd June 1947, the Constituent Assembly was divided. Out of 389 members, 90 members on the basis of the area, the East Pakistan and the main Pakistan, that is the West Pakistan. 90 members were given to the Pakistan, and there remained 299 members. Out of them, 70 were representatives of the princely states, and initially there were 9 women members. After partition, there were 6 women members in the Constituent Assembly, including Sarojini Naidu. And 4 members were nominated by the Governor General from Oudh and Baluchistan and 2 other areas. So there were 299 members for making the constitution of the India after division. I should have speak more on the legal aspect or socio-legal, political legal aspect of the preamble, but somehow I failed to restrict myself from giving the background or history of the Constituent Assembly. So, on 9th December in the first session, Acharya Kripalani proposed the name of Sachidanand Sinha as interim president of the Constituent Assembly, because all of you know that there cannot be a house without president. There cannot be a meeting without chairperson or president. So all the members of Constituent Assembly took oath, because this is also a very fine technical matter, that without oath you are not on the seat. Unless and until there is an oath, you are not considered as the member of any house. Even during student union election, we give oath to the elected members of the student union. So then Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the permanent president on 11th December, and the first document introduced in the Constituent Assembly was the present preamble in the form of objectives clause. The law scholars must be knowing that for every statutory law, every law which is being passed by some house, the concerned minister present the bill in the house, and the first thing is the objective clause, the objectives or the object of the said statute to be presented. If there is some anomaly in the existing law on the subject, then it is to be removed. If some amendment is required, it is being done. If a new law is required, then the object is being told by the concerned minister. Like many of the laws have come after independence of India, like prohibition of dowry, or the recently passed criminal laws, 3 criminal laws, which replaced the IPC, CRPC and Evidence Act. So it is to be told by the concerned minister. Pandit Nehru, as leader of the Congress, presented objectives clause before the Constituent Assembly on 13th of December 1946. Then now I come to the nature or philosophy of the preamble. Actually, we can understand preamble by explaining, or in legal terms, by interpreting various words, all the words used in the preamble. So, preamble is a has been derived from preambus. The means a statement before the main statement. It was generally used in some address by some person, and the statements or presentation before the main statement was known as preambus. So in English it is preamble. So there is preamble in every statute. Any act or statute passed by some legislature, whatever may be the status of that legislature, there is some preamble. But generally, other acts or simple acts, it is a very short, one line or one sentence preamble, like for Contract Act, which was passed in 1872. The preamble is that whereas it is expedient to provide, to amend law relating to contract, it is hereby given as follows. तो सिंपली एक सेंटेंस का होता था. अब it is also very amazing that the preamble of Constitution also has only one sentence. It is the beauty of the framer of the preamble. Originally it had 80 words. After the 42nd Amendment in 1976, 4 words were added. One socialist, the other secular, and in the last lines, it says unity of India in place of unity of India and integrity. 2 words were added. So they became 84 words, taking into Constituent Assembly as single word. If we take Constituent and Assembly 2 words, then it would be 85 words. Because it is a proper noun, so it is considered like we say Lok Sabha. So we don't take Lok as one word and Sabha as another word. So the preamble was introduced as the objective clause. And why the preamble of Constitution is so extensive or wide? Because it is a general pattern that the preamble of constitutional documents are generally exhaustive. Like the first example is preamble of United States of America. US got independent in 1776 and the Constitution was adopted in 1787. And also, first time the words "we the people" was used in the American Constitution. Later on, we had UN Charter. In UN Charter also, it is, the preamble says, "We the people of United Nations," not states. In Covenant of League of Nations after First World War, the words used were "we the contracting states." It was for the first time in United Nations Charter, in an international document, in a multilateral treaty, peoples were given importance or prominence. And then we have Preamble of India, where we have the words, we the people of India. Now, the words used in the preamble, just for factual information, law people know that there are various, we call it readings. Actually, for passing any act, there must be 3 readings. Means the draft of that act must be presented before the House 3 times. First reading, preliminary presentation, then discussion on that, then second reading, after proper or needed amendment, then third reading. The draft may be referred to the standing committee or the joint parliamentary committee. This is the procedure for passing any act by the legislature. In Constituent Assembly also, the draft constitution went through 3 readings. Actually, we know very less about the pioneer of the first draft. Mr. or Sir B.N. Roy, RAU, B.N. Rao, was nominated by the Constituent Assembly as the constitutional advisor. He was a civil servant, and he drafted the first draft in about 10-11 months, and it was produced before the Constituent Assembly. Then on 29th August 1947, after about 9 months, the so-called, which is very popular, drafting committee was made by the Constituent Assembly. Generally, we discuss about the contribution of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar sir. His contribution was that he was chairman of the drafting committee. There were total 7 members, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar and 6 other members. But they collectively made the second draft of the Constituent Assembly. But when the draft is produced before the Constituent Assembly, there were thousands of pages and several subcommittees which discussed and deliberated upon the various clauses of the subject which was given to the various independent committees. There were Committee for Fundamental Rights, Directive Principles, Provinces, Federalism, Minority, Civil Servant, In many committees, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru were the chairperson, but they were member in other committees. It was not a system at that time that if a person is chairperson or president of a committee, he cannot be simply a member of the another committee. So they discussed all the provisions in their own committee, and when the matters came before the Constituent Assembly, firstly the chairperson of that advisory committee answered the questions, or like you see in present parliament also, that members can raise some or ask for some amendment in the draft statute, and the ruling party is to give apply of those proposals, and some of the proposals may be included in the draft statute or may not be included. It is for the majority party because they have number in the legislature. But in Constituent Assembly, it was not possible that the provisions may be passed by majority, because we are to make a new India. So if there was division in the Constituent Assembly itself, then it would have been very difficult to implement the Constitution. So the Constitution is to be adopted unanimously. Therefore, very long discussions took place in the Constituent Assembly, and the most important contribution of Dr. Ambedkar is that after second reading, he answered all the questions after the preparation of the draft constitution. He answered all the questions. Why a particular provision has not been added, why a particular provision is included in the draft constitution. So it was a very difficult task. Therefore, generally, we say that who is the maker of constitution? Basically, Constituent Assembly is the maker of constitution. But if we talk about individual, then the answer is Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, because he made the final draft after considering the objection or suggestion of all the members of the Constituent Assembly. Now the nature of Constitution, the preamble of Constitution, generally it is called introductory part. It is the preface of the Constitution. It is the mirror of Constitution. It is the soul and spirit of the Constitution. Different people, including B.R. Ambedkar, K.M. Munshi, explain it in their own words. And all the constituent members of Constituent Assembly. After Constituent Assembly, Advocate N.A. Palkhiwala, very famous advocate, though basically he was advocate on taxation, but he became a constitutional lawyer after the Privy Purse case in 1971. He defined preamble of the Constitution as identity card of Constitution. Very important dictum Why? Because identity card of any person explains everything about the person: name, father's name, residence, phone number, maybe blood group. So he called it ID of the Constitution, and therefore he also wrote a book, We the People. So he gave importance of the Constitution in his book, and specifically about the preamble and We the People, insisting or stressing the words We the People. Then the Constitution was finally ready by 24th November 1946 and adopted on 26th November 1949. Sorry, not ready in 1946 but in 1949. But some provisions, as for election or some temporary provisions or citizenship, they were implemented on 26 November 1949 itself, but the whole Constitution was enforced with effect from 26th January 1950. Now, one of the very interesting question is, when the Constitution was ready on 26 November 1949, why it was enforced on 26 January 1950? What was the reason for waiting for 2 months? This is a matter of history as well as sentiments and commitment. The Indian National Congress in 1935 also, after the demand of Indian Constituent Assembly by M.N. Roy, the Indian National Congress resolved for self-determination. It is basically an international concept that all people have right to decide their fate, their fortune, and for that matter, the government of the state. You know that when United Nations was made in 1945, the total signatories were 51, 50 plus 1. Poland attended the UN conference of 1942 but did not participate in 1945. So Poland was also included. And now there are about 200 countries. So 150 countries have got independence after UN Charter or making of United Nations. There is generally a debate that what is the use of United Nations. So Apeksha ji and Ashish ji are the scholars of international law. They must be knowing better. But it is the importance that whatever, or if we talk about the wars, but it is the role of United Nations that Third World War has not commenced, even after Second World War, which ended in 1945. So 55 years from back century and 25. 80 years have passed, but still we are just the media, especially private channels, are trying to create a fear of Third World War in the minds of people, specifically in the countries like India, because we fail to understand the background, the nature of war, or even the recent strike. All the private media repeatedly called it war. युद्ध हो रहा है, युद्ध में ये हुआ. It was never a war. The earlier strike was also not a war. These in international relation or law called reprisals. Just a token show of protest. War cannot be undeclared. It is a rule of public international law, basic precept of international law, basic norm of international law, that there cannot be a war without declaration. So, the background of 26 January is that in 1929, in the Lahore session of Indian National Congress, the resolution was passed on 31st December 1929 for complete independence, Purn Swaraj. And it was also resolved that the coming 26th January, that is 26 January 1930, would be celebrated as Independence Day, Swaraj Divas, and lakhs of people came outside their houses and had procession and celebration on the Purn Swaraj resolution on 26 January 1930. Therefore, the constituency, taking into consideration the sentiments of the people of India, declared that the constitution would be fully enforced with effect from the 26th January 1950. Then the final signature were made on the draft on the final constitution as document on 24 January, and with that signature the Constituent Assembly was dissolved. On 24 January, means 24 January was the working, so we may say that from 25th January Constituent Assembly was dissolved. Why dissolved? Because Constituent Assembly are always for framing of some specific constitutional document. A document which is having the status of constitution cannot be framed by a general legislature. So, the importance of preamble is that it was the first to be introduced on 13th December 1946 and the last resolution passed on 22nd January 1949. This is the importance of preamble. The other thing that if you have time then I can explain the words. If you don't have time, I can finish without explanation of the words. because that may also take half an hour more. So I would come to the significance or importance or technicalities or the legal or constitutional status of the preamble. Basically, initially it was considered not as part of the constitution, but later on it became part of the constitution. In Re Berubari, which was we use the law, people know about that. When there is a reference, the President of India can refer some matter to the Supreme Court for advisory opinion. So, in Re Berubari, it was held by the Supreme Court that Constitution is not part of, preamble is not part of the Constitution. But in further cases, in short, I can tell you that the most important case on constitutional law, that is Keshwanand Bharti versus State of Kerala, the doctrine of basic structure was propounded by the Supreme Court, and it said that preamble is part of the Constitution. The matter came because if it is part of the Constitution, it was before 42nd Amendment in 1976. After 1976, many judgments came from Supreme Court which clearly held about the preamble as part of the Constitution. If it is part of the Constitution, then only it can be amended, because there is amendment of the Constitution. But the basic structure doctrine must be followed. So, the Supreme Court declared in 1973 that preamble is part of the Constitution, not only part of the Constitution, but it is basic structure. It is one of the basic structure. It cannot be amended in a way that it destroys the basic structure of the Constitution. Even then there was Indira Nehru Gandhi versus Rajnarayan case or Minerva Mills case, and very important, Bombay case. Generally, we know about Bombay case that it related with the legislature, who is having the majority in the legislature. But in that case, the Supreme Court declared that secularism was the part of and basic structure of the Indian Constitution even before the 42nd Amendment. So, when we analyze 42nd Amendment, we generally, the positive aspect is that it was just included in the preamble of the Constitution to avoid confusion. Basically, when the first government, which remained for 17 years, the socialistic pattern of society was implemented. The socialism and secularism were not foreign to the Indian Constitution. They were just made clear so that there should not be any confusion. So even political scientists and historians know that even in Congress, the most prominent group was of capitalistic leaders. And Indira Gandhi was made Prime Minister to take her as a very submissive and non-assertive Prime Minister by the syndicate. Therefore, she had to come out of the original Congress. So, this is the background and the significance or importance, but the main part which is related with the nature or philosophy, the philosophy of Constitution, because we study every law from the angle of legal philosophy, jurisprudence, science of law or philosophy of law. That is very important to understand any law or any development in the society. So thank you very much for giving me opportunity, and all the best for everything in life, especially academic endeavor. Thank you.